Welcome to the Empower Woman Show, where we strengthen women with the Word of God. My name is Amanda Bedra. I am your host, and with me on the show today is my co-host,
Erika Ide-Chofu.
and we have a guest with us on the show today. I will allow her to introduce herself.
Yes, Reverend Victoria Lawrence.
Reverend Victoria also works with the Bible Society, and I volunteer with the Bible Society. It's an organization that I'm such a huge fan of. Do you want to tell us a bit about the Bible Society before we jump right into the episode?
Yes, thank you so much, Amanda. Yes, Bible Society works to support people in bringing the Bible to life by printing, translating, and making the Bible available all over the world. And Amanda, being one of our volunteers, written an amazing prayer card that we use in Bible Society. So I would recommend that you go to our website and order it as well. And you can also support the work of Bible Society by making the Bible available to everyone all over the world by going to our website, www.biblesociety.org.uk. And fill a form there that allows you to donate on a monthly basis. It's called Bible a Month. By giving us £10 a month, you'll be putting a Bible in the hands of a young girl or a young boy somewhere in Africa or other parts of the world. God bless you. Thank you, Amanda.
I love Bible a Month. It's something that I really encourage people to be a part of, because it's not just about getting the Bible, it's about getting them a Bible in a language that they understand, which I think is quite important. You know, sometimes we take for granted the fact that we can just read the Bible, read the Bible in English, but there are so many of these children in different parts of the world that would really understand the Bible even that bit more when they have the opportunity to read it in their own language. And that is what is so spectacular about Bible a Month and the work that the Bible Society does as well.
Yes, thank you.
So on this episode of the show, we're going to be talking about the queens. Yeah, we talked about a few queens already, but we like these queens. We like these queens.
The queens we like. These are the wicked ones.
Not the wicked ones, we like these ones. We are talking about 3 wives of David, and then we are going to be talking about Vashti, Queen Vashti and Queen Esther as well.
If we have time.
If we have time, because somehow we tend to go deep, isn't it? But anyway, if we've got time, we will get to Vashti and Esther. But the first 3 that we're going to talk about is Abigail, Michal, and Bathsheba. My favorite queen, by the way, not just because I've written about her, but she's my favorite queen. But I know that Abigail, Reverend Victoria, Abigail is such your woman. So I'm not even going to try to introduce her. I'm not going to talk about Abigail. I will just hand her over to you. Tell us about Abigail.
Oh, Abigail, she's my favorite girl in the Bible. She was married to a man called Nabal. And one thing that I always find fascinating about the way Abigail was described in the Bible in 1 Samuel 25, the Bible describes her as a woman of a good understanding and of a beautiful countenance. So she was a beautiful woman. And then you wonder, and she was also intelligent. Good understanding means she's intelligent. So every time I always ask this question, what makes a beautiful, intelligent woman like her gets married to a man like Nabal?
That the Bible describes as
I had the same question. But I guess in those times, there wasn't that much choice. So, so let's cut her some slack.
Yes, some slack. So I believe
she found herself there.
She found herself in that relationship, you know, and of course, and she tried to make it work. One thing I love about her, this woman is, I mean, there are lots of virtues that you can see when you read the story of Abigail. She's obviously hospitable and very approachable. You know, I can't say that of many women around, because sometimes...
Do you want to just give us a quick rundown of what happened, the whole story?
Okay, the whole story. So Abigail was married to Nabal, and Nabal is a very rich man, very wealthy. And at that time in that story, David's men had helped, you know, Nabal's servants when they were in trouble, you know, on the field. And then, so this time around, David was in trouble and needed some help from Nabal. So he sent some of his men to go to Nabal's house to ask for that help. And of course, Nabal did, who is David? I mean, like,
why should I help him?
Why should I help him? I don't even know him. Pretending like he knew who he was. And then, of course, the servant went back to tell David what he had said. And David, being who he was, a very angry man, you know, very temperamental, said he's coming back to the household of David and Nabal, and he was going to destroy everybody. But the servant kind of dropped the conversation between Nabal and David's men, and he ran quickly to go and tell Abigail. And I love the way he even described Nabal. He said, you know, this man, he's
a fool.
He's a fool. Nobody can talk to him. So this is what he has done. No? You better find a way to solve this problem. And there are key things there. The Bible said Abigail made haste. You know, Abigail didn't wait for another day. He didn't sleep. She didn't sleep on it. She said, oh, I can't be bothered. Whatever trouble he puts himself, that's his problem. The Bible said Abigail made haste. She was a strategic woman. She didn't just make haste and start going towards David. She thought about it. Yeah. She knew what she needed to do. So first thing, the gifts of generosity. She decided, okay, if I'm going to see this man, I better send a lot of goods ahead of me. So she asked the servant to prepare lots and lots of things, and they went ahead. You know, those generosity spoke before she even got to David. And of course, when she got to David, she used the right word. You could tell she knew her history. You could tell she was prophetic. You know, of course, when you read the story of Abigail, she's like a type of Jesus in Old Testament, like an intercessor, somebody who comes in and intercedes, you know, for us. Like, you know, the Bible says Jesus is sitting on the right hand of God, interceding for us. So she went before David. She didn't just go, she bowed down, demonstrated humility. And it wasn't just that was what she said. She began to remind David who he was and what would happen if he carried out the act, and the fact that why would you let a foolish man acknowledge the problem that this man is a foolish man? Why would you let such a foolish man to put his blood on your hands? And the way she said it, the humility, the generosity, everything wrapped together. And by the time she finished, David calmed down. And this woman was able to stop David from coming to destroy their household. And I just love her. And that's a call to every woman. We have been called to be an intercessor, to be hospitable, to be generous, to intercede, you know, and hijack the plan of the enemy for our homes, you know. I just love it.
It's interesting that Nabal described as a fool, the way she even described him, it gives an insight into what their relationship could have been like. But that was not a reason for her not to do the right thing.
That's right.
She still went ahead to do what was right for her household. She didn't look at it as an opportunity of, come and kill my husband, this useless man. She not only honored David, she honored Nabal. And the way the story turned out is, you know, eventually Nabal's met his own consequence naturally. He dies, and then David decides, I'm going to marry this woman. I'm not as a sharp guy. I'm not letting this woman go. So he marries her, doesn't he?
Sorry, I don't want to forget this thought. You said that she obviously was someone who knew her history. As you were talking about what she did, sending the gift forward, where else have we seen that? I'm thinking of someone in particular. What's his name? Jacob.
Jacob, when he was coming to see
when he sent. For all we know, that's where she got the idea from. You know, just the fact. I think it's the fact that you said she knew her history, because she did things that we have seen others do in the Bible. So women, read your Bible.
Read your Bible.
That's why we're doing this show, isn't it? Because, as you know, I keep saying, I believe that these women have so much to teach us.
And also, obviously, people would always say this when they talk about Abigail, that she stylishly told David when she was talking that when you become a king, don't forget
about me. She did. She sowed the seed of her mouth.
She did. It further solidifies the thought about her being an intelligent, wise woman.
Isn't it?
Because she knew that the bus stop that she had parked, the bus was not
going anywhere. Might not go anywhere.
No, but okay. So let's real talk. Intelligent woman. I'm not sure I know very many places in the Bible where a woman is described as intelligent in addition to beautiful.
We've seen beautiful,
but
she's beautiful and intelligent.
Right? So, as a woman, intelligent, beautiful, filled with all of God's giftings, what you do when you find yourself in a relationship right? I mean, in our age and time now, we get to choose, right? So this
Sometimes.
well, for the most part, we get to choose. So I'm saying, what do we do? What hope is there for women who maybe don't make the right choices or find themselves in relationships where the boss is going nowhere?
Yeah.
What hope do we have?
Well, I mean, depends on the situation. You can pray for God to intervene, which God does. And we've seen different stories like that, even in our real time, where God intervened and the relationship end up working out in the end. And you can come out because, you know, especially if it's abusive. That man drank himself to death, basically. So, which tells us he probably have some alcohol problem. You know, it's probably, you know, the Bible did not say that, but we can tell from how,
Yeah,
you know,
because she said he was drunk and she didn't speak to him.
exactly.
She obviously knew how to handle him.
Exactly. So if a servant described him as a wicked man, the Bible described him as a
wife.
wicked to the wife.
He had the audacity to do that. It must have been
it must have been a wicked. And the Bible described him as a wicked man. So you can living with a wicked man means that, you know, it could be that he would have been abusive, maybe treated her badly and all that. But then you see, what I love about this story is that she didn't have to fight a battle.
God did it.
God did it.
God did it.
Women can trust God to do it. And when God has done it, because another thing, school of, she could have said, oh, I don't want to go. I don't want people to think I was already having an affair with David before my husband. That, you know what?
It's not impossible for people to say.
But she didn't allow that to stop her. She just left. She moved on. So women must learn to move on. Don't care about what people say or naysayers or whatever. Once you know where you're coming from and you know what God is saying to you. So when it's time for you to move on with your head up. And that's what she did. And she became a queen. You know.
Amen.
Queen Abigail.
Queen
Abigail. Okay, let's talk about another queen, Michal. We know that the Bible tells us that she's Saul's second daughter. And she was kind of used as a pawn for David, where Saul says to David, you want to marry my daughter, go and kill 100 Philistines. And he was hoping that David was going to die in battle. But because David wanted to dare him, he kills 200. So her dowry was very expensive. It cost the life of 200 men. But then she uncovers a plot to kill David. So David flees. And when David flees, Saul gives her in marriage to somebody else. But then we see later, David comes and he demands his wife. The part of the Bible that I love the most is when David comes to collect his wife, the man that she was married to, the Bible tells us that he wept.
Abby.
He was crying like, don't take my wife away from me.
Girl.
He's weeping after her. You know, Abner has to tell him, just go back. You know, this is a done deal. I wanted to draw that part of the Bible out because her story ends up in a sad way. She's the one that rebukes David when he comes back with the Ark of God, and David is dancing in absolute, undisguised worship, undisputed worship to God. And she's looking at him thinking, why are you making such a fool of yourself? And so she rebukes him, and that becomes the end of her story. But I would like to think that we see the beginning. She was a good woman. She loved her husband. She protected him against her father. She has a second husband that is weeping when she leaves. So there must have been something about her. She made a wrong choice in the way that she rebukes David. And I just wonder, why did she say that to him? That's the first thing. The second question that I have when I think about her is, the Bible tells us after she's done this rebuke to David that she doesn't have any child. Was she just somebody that was barren, or was it that because David had rebuked her, it was kind of like a discord in their relationship, so there was no opportunity for them to even, you know, be in a place where she can have children? Was that then the end of their relationship, so to speak? What are your thoughts around that, and what can we learn actually from her story? I just laughed a bit there because I was like, well, Queen
Abigail had turned up.
Anyway, it's a bit of a difficult one. Like you said, it's interesting that a man is weeping when a wife is taken away from him. She must have been
a good woman.
She must have been a good woman.
A fantastic wife.
Yeah, absolutely.
But people make mistakes. Things happen. And it's sad that things happen. I guess, again, it's just a reminder that the fact that you started well doesn't mean you're going to end well. And, you know, even Paul said, I have to keep doing less at the end. I fall away, right? So I guess that's point number one. Finish your race well. Let's make sure that we finish our race well. We persevere till the end. But then I don't know. It's a difficult one. The Bible doesn't really give us any clear information about why she didn't have a child, whether that it was a result of what she did. But I'd like to believe that she learned from her mistake. And she had been through a lot. She had been through trauma, being used as a pawn by her father, against her husband. Only God knows what thoughts. She might have been standing there thinking, this man that I've suffered for, this man that, you know, my dad treated me like this for, is now dancing anyhow and showing his only God knows what state of mind she was in. I'm not making excuses for her. I'm just saying that no one knows.
No one knows.
No one knows.
Why do you think she rebuked him, though? What was it about?
Yeah, I think as women, we need to pray for the gifts of discernment, really, because I think that was what she lacked. You can imagine a whole queen, you know, I mean, a whole queen to be, you know, at the time David came, right, and David was dancing, you know, in a way. So if she was discerning, you know, this guy was a worshiper. He loves God. All he does is honor and worship God. That's who David is, despite, you know, his bad behavior and some of the other things I did wrong. So if she was discerning, she will know that this guy is just giving his God that he loves honor. But then imagine a queen, because remember what she said. She said, you know, you're dishonoring yourself in front of the female.
Yes.
So there was a sense of jealousy. There was a sense of, you know, because women, we like to carry ourselves, you know, with dignity, right? And we want to show we are very good with image, very image conscious.
It was image.
It was about image, you know, that my own husband, somebody that belongs to me,
And
you're
the
now
king
behaving
is
like
now
this
just,
in front of everybody. She wouldn't mind if that was just in front of her alone, you know. Maybe
It was that public display.
it was a public display that other people are now looking like you're disgracing yourself, that kind of a thing.
And you remember, of all of David's wives, she was the one that was brought up in royalty.
Yeah,
Because she was Saul's daughter.
Yeah,
There was
so-
probably an
So there was
expectation of
something
we
about
don't
her.
behave like
So
this.
she's not queen just because she's married to
Yeah,
David. Her
it's-
royalty
yeah.
doesn't start in
It's
the
like
household
Princess
of
Anne.
David.
It's like Princess
Yeah.
Anne of England, you know, looking her husband, you know, dancing in front of the Buckingham Palace, and everybody's looking.
Yes, there are certain
You
things that
understand?
kings
It's
don't
undignifying.
do. Yeah.
So for her, it's about you don't because she was raised to be prim and proper. She's a princess, right? And she's married you, and then you're now doing this. No, you can't.
After I've suffered,
So
don't
yes,
come and
but
disgrace me.
unfortunately for her, even if she has felt that way, but it was what she said. You know, she.
And it was when she said it and how
And
she
when
said
she
it.
said
There's
it,
no record that she reprimanded him in public. So it was that thing about how do you even speak to your husband in front of
Yeah.
in front of the people that look up to him, and he's doing his own undignified praise. He's worshiping God, but you are not in rebuking him. You're not just rebuking him. It's almost like saying God doesn't deserve this kind of
it's
praise.
a disdain towards God.
Disdain towards
the
God
God
as well.
that is, yeah. So
Yeah, no, I think that's what it was, right? Because she was describing her husband in ways that were not flattering, right? Which we know Abigail had done for her own husband, but she was not rebuked. But I think it was that God angle.
Yeah, it was a God angle, yeah.
Okay, so
How much time have we got left?
we've got about 8 minutes left.
Oh, dear.
Okay,
To rush through.
Time has gone very quickly with us. Let us talk about my favorite queen,
Yeah.
Bathsheba. So we know the story of Bathsheba. And just as a quick, because we've only got 8 minutes left, we might not have time to do her story as much justice. I want to say that I've written a novel titled Becoming Queen Bathsheba. It is a fictional retelling of her story. As much as I use the word fictional, I've used everything in the Bible. So every detail in the Bible is contained in the story and then some. It's a fantastic book. I encourage you to grab a copy. You can do that on our website. But let's talk about Bathsheba. So Bathsheba, the Bible tells us, is married to Uriah, who is one of David's 30, one of his, his warriors. Her father as well is one of David's key warriors. Yeah. So this woman is minding her business, having a shower, she's cleansing herself. The Bible tells us David is at home at a time when kings should have been at war. He wakes up leisurely around 6 o'clock in the evening, walking on his rooftop, and then he sees this woman bathing. He sends for, first of all, he inquires about her. You know, he asks who she is. They tell her, wife to one of your men, daughter to one of your men, but that doesn't stop David. He's lusting after this beautiful woman, and then he calls for her. And as we know, there is an improper encounter between David and Bathsheba that then leads to her being pregnant. Doesn't stop there. She sends word and tells the king she's pregnant. He sends for her husband in the hope that he would go home to his wife. Uriah, being the man that he is, refuses to do that, because now we remember that all the king's men are at war. So why should he be at home enjoying food and enjoying the pleasantries of his wife? So he refuses to go home and ends up taking a letter that seals his death. So that's the story in a summary. After which he marries Bathsheba. So Uriah dies, David marries Bathsheba. The son that they've conceived out of wedlock dies, and they further have another, well, they have a few more sons, but we know the story of Solomon and Nathan and some of the other children that they have together. So here are my questions. I don't even know where to start from, because there's so much to talk about in the story of David and Bathsheba. But let's talk about something that is very prevalent even in this world today. I don't even want us to get into that whole argument of, was it adultery, was it rape? I don't know whether you want to touch on that quickly. But my question is around paternity fraud. So as we know, coming from Nigeria is something that is still talked about today. When I read this story of David and Bathsheba, one of the things that really stuck out for me was sometimes it's just not the woman's fault. There are lots of circumstances where women end up being quiet around the circumstances surrounding the birth of their children. And so what if Uriah had gone home? What was David's plan? That he would have gone home, he would have slept with the wife, and then that would have been paternity fraud because the child is not his. But it still happens today. Do you want to talk about that, Reverend Victoria?
Well, what is there to talk about? It's really sad. It was a sad scenario, and like you said, it's still happening today. A lot of women, I've seen a lot of Nollywood movies that allude to that, but not just that, real life stories that I've heard, whereby out of desperation, maybe a husband is in hospital, and they need to changing situation, and the woman goes to seek for help from the uncle or from whoever, and this person said, well, if for me to help you, you've got to sleep with me. And they had to do what they had to do to help the husband. And in that, sometimes they get pregnant and all that. There are lots of it happening nowadays, but I just think it's unfortunate for the child involved, because sometimes they never know who their father is. And sometimes people find out when they're applying to travel abroad, and they have to do DNA tests, and then the man suddenly realizes he's not the father to the child, which is very sad, because identity is a big thing, and a child not knowing their source, actually affect them even in the future. So yeah, it's sad, but it's very prevalent. There's a lot of it happening.
And let's talk about a bit about this story. What is it for you when you think about Bathsheba's story?
Bathsheba, it's sad. The start of the story is sad, because like you said, she was minding her business, going about her life, right? And this happened to her. She was so beautiful that a king desired her. Someone in a position of power and authority that was able to take from her the life that she knew and create a different life. And we know what it was like in those times where the women didn't have a voice, but then also the king. She lost her husband. We don't know how quickly after she lost her husband, she was moved into the palace.
Yeah.
So just imagine the trauma.
Yeah.
Trauma
And the
upon
guilt.
trauma upon trauma that she went through, you know, with him, whether it was rape, whatever it happened. She lost her husband, then you're married to this man. I mean, we see that they stayed together and she had kids for him. I can't imagine what she went through as a woman, the gamut of emotions that she would have run through to get to a point where she was able to live with this man in love and have Solomon. So all I can say is I am grateful that we serve a God who somehow makes things well.
Well, yeah.
Because without God, Bathsheba would have been a wreck.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that there was restoration, even in this story. Her story really is one of those beauty out of ashes. For the child that died, we have that reminder of Solomon. And it's one of those stories where, yes, it's how many thousand years ago, but there are still women that find themselves in difficult circumstances, that find themselves in relationships that are painful, whether it's women that are forced into marriage, whether it's young brides, whether it's women that are abused. And I love the encouragement of God can bring beauty out of ashes. And for any woman that identifies with Bathsheba's story, whether it's from a position of rape or whether it's from a position of an abuse of power, there is a God of redemption, there is a God of restoration, there is a God that brings beauty out of ashes. I want to thank you so much for journeying with us. We've run out of time, so we can't talk about Esther and Vashti. We will in another episode, but it's been such a pleasure talking about the queens, about the wives of David, and we look forward to talking about more women in the Bible on the next episode. Thank you so much to everybody that has played such a part in bringing these episodes to life. I love that we are part of an organization that is committed to strengthening women with the Word of God. Thank you to Pastor Dorothy Ofosuwari and the women of a Different Spirit Ministry at Freedom Center International Welling for sponsoring this season of the Empower a Woman show.